Good morning, everyone. My name is Osama. My student number is 2023003, and today I'll be completing task 2 of developing workplace policy and sustainabilities, in which I will be conducting a role play as a project manager, and I'll be discussing the sustainability policy briefing report with the stakeholders. So I begin now. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone from the stakeholders and the team who could afford to come in today to share these insights about sustainabilities and how it could be applied within our organization. For those who couldn't, well, it's very unfortunate, and all the slides and the presentation will be forwarded to you for review. And if you have any questions, we could have a discussion later on at a specified time to your convenience. Moving on. Well, today we'll be talking about the sustainability. I'll mention the content of my presentation. Firstly, we'll have introduction about sustainabilities, how it can be applied, what's the benefits, advantages into incorporating that. We'll look at sustainability facts and figures, business planning opportunities and sustainabilities, examples of sustainability policies, legal requirements and legislation, performance indicators, continuous improvement in how it can be applied, policy options, and proposed scope into our organization. Let's look at introduction. Well, when it comes to sustainability, sustainability is not only a moral imperative, but also presents numerous benefits to the business. Here are some key facts and figures highlighting the importance of sustainabilities. Now, when we talk about sustainabilities, it's very important that we mention it into different aspects. One of the aspects is environmental impact aspects. Now, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, human activities are the primary cause of global warming, resulting in climate change and its adverse effects. Also, according to the World Wildfire Fund, estimates that the Earth's wildlife population have declined by 60% on average since 1970s due to habitat destruction, pollution, and climate change. And these are all subjects and matters that really apply into sustainabilities and how it can be applied within the societies, including big organizations, small, medium, or even governments. One of the aspects as well is economic benefits. Now, according to the United Nations Global Compact, estimates that sustainability-oriented companies outperform their competitors in the long term by 10 to 15%. Well, isn't that a great number actually? And think about that and how it can actually benefit our organization in the future. 10-15% is not an easy number actually. It should be very considerable. Second point is sustainable practices lead to cost saving through increased resource efficiency, reduced energy consumption, and waste reduction. Well, isn't that actually a point that would actually be very beneficial if applied within our organization? Let's look at the Global Reporting Initiative states that businesses implementing sustainability strategies experience improved brand reputation, customer loyalty, and employee engagement. Well, isn't that something to consider, our marketing managers and our marketing team? Well, let's look at the other aspects, which is social responsibility. Sustainable practices contribute to social well-being by ensuring fair labor practices, promoting community engagement, and respecting human rights. Well, isn't that very principle that we can be applied within our organization actually? Now, according to the Cone Communication, 87% of consumers are more likely to purchase products from companies committed to environmental and social responsibility. That is something really good to consider, actually. Sustainable businesses attract and retain talented employees who align with the company values and purpose. Moving on. We will be talking now about business planning opportunities and sustainabilities, how sustainability could be integrated, and what could be the benefits actually of applying sustainabilities within our organization. Well, integrating sustainability into business planning is crucial for organizations aiming to align with their operation with environmental and social responsibility. By incorporating sustainability principle into business strategies, companies cannot only mitigate risk, but also seize new opportunities. Here are some ways in which sustainability can be built into business planning and inform business opportunities. Let's look at this example. The first thing is vision and mission alignment. We have to ensure that organization vision and mission alignment statements are reflects of commitment to sustainability. This demonstrates a clear intent to integrate sustainabilities into all aspects of business. So we're not talking about applying sustainabilities on the HR department or the marketing department. We're talking about applying sustainability as a lifestyle for the organization, which should be conducted in all across the organization, and we would also consider into applying it with the vendors and the people companies we outsourcing or out dealing with. Environmental and social impact assessment. We would have to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the organization environmental and social impact. This includes evaluating carbon footprints with our organization, resource consumption, waste generation, and social implications of operations. The next point is would be setting sustainable goals and objectives. By saying that, establish measurable and time-bound goals and objectives related to sustainability. These goals can be encompass areas such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions, optimizing resource using, promoting social equity, and fostering community engagement. Next point is would be market research and consumer trends. The marketing team, of course, would have to conduct market research to identify emerging consumer trends and preferences referring to sustainability. Now, it's very important to do that because this insight can guide product development, marketing strategies, and innovation, enabling the organization to capitalize on growing demand for sustainable solutions. Supply chain optimization. Evaluate and optimize the organization's supply chain to promote sustainability. This involves working closely with suppliers, ensure ethical sourcing, responsible manufacturing process, and reduced environmental impact. And as I said at the beginning, working towards sustainabilities which have to be conducted as a lifestyle for the organization, and which means that it should be applied throughout the whole organization, and even though by by dealing with outsourcing vendors or maybe subcontractors of our organization. Let's look at example of sustainability policies and procedures. The first example would be, which could be applied within our organization as well, energy efficiency and conservation policy. Now, when you hear the name of the policy, what goes in your mind? What is the purpose of the policy? Well, the purpose is reduce energy consumption, promote sustainable practices, and minimize the environmental impact of the organization operations. Now, how can this be applied, or what's the features of these policies? Well, conducting energy audits, implementing energy efficient technologies and equipment, monitoring and tracking energy consumption. Moving on, example number two, which could also be applied within our organization, waste management and recycling policy. Well, what's the purpose of this policy? The waste management and recycling policy aims to minimize waste regeneration, promote recycling reuse practices, and ensure responsible waste disposal with the organization. How could this be applied, or what's the features of the policy? Implementing waste segregation system, separate recyclable materials from general waste, different pins applied within the organization, not a big deal. I suppose encouraging employees reduce, reuse, and recycle through awareness campaigns and providing appropriate facilities such as recycling bins. And I believe we do have the commitment into applying that from our employees, as far as I know, partnering with recycling vendors and waste management companies. Moving on, let's look at legal requirements or what legislation, when we talk about responsibility, what are the legal requirements or what legislation that could be applied within? Well, the first thing, name of the legislation is Work Health WHS legislation. What's the purpose of the legislation? Well, the purpose is to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of workers and other individuals in the workplace. Next legislation would be anti-discrimination legislation, which aims to prevent discrimination based on protected characteristics such as race, gender, age, and disability. Fair work legislation. Fair work legislation governs employment practices and set out rights and responsibility of employers and employees in Australia. Moving on, performance indicators. Now, when we talk about responsibility, it's very important to set out our performance indicators in which we can identify, are we moving in the right track? Are we actually applying very efficient, sustainable model within our organization? Well, to find out, we will have to work within something called KPI or key performance indicators. I'll give you an example of that. When we talk about energy efficiency as well, or how could we apply it? Well, the key performance of that, energy consumption per unit of production of per square foot per facility. What's the consumption? Percentage reduction in energy consumption compared to baseline year. Well, has there been a reduction since we have applied a sustainable model within our organization? And if there is a reduction, would that actually a very efficient reduction? Energy cost savings achieved through energy efficient practices. Well, have we actually saved a lot of money by applying sustainable, or was it something not mentionable even? Let's talk about waste management. What could be a key performance indicators for that? Well, total waste generated per unit of production, percentage of waste diverted from landfill through recycling and combusting, and the last key indicators would be employee engagement. Well, what's the number of employees trained on sustainability practices and employee participation in sustainability's initiative or volunteers activities? Do we have that? We need a lot of encourage, I suppose, within our organization and a lot of education materials to be provided to the employees, so on. Moving on, well, it's very important that we will assume that we have applied a sustainable model within our organization. It's very important to consider continuous improvement. And how do we do that? The first thing is regular monitoring and data analysis. By implementing a system to monitor and collect data on resource consumption and waste generation and other sustainability metrics, employee engagement and training, we would have to foster a culture of sustainability within the organization by engaging employees at all levels. And of course, as providing training and awareness programs. Set performance target. We would have to establish specific and measurable performance target related to resource efficiency. Continuous improvement project encourage employees to identify and implement continuous improvement projects that focus on resource efficiency. Moving on. Well, policy options that we can actually consider for our small, beautiful organization. The first thing would be sustainable procurement policy. What's the purpose of the policy? The purpose is the sustainable procurement policy aims to ensure that organization procurement practices align with the sustainable principles and contribute to environmental and social responsibility. What's the features of this policy? The first one would be establish a criteria for evaluating supplier based on their sustainability performance. Include requirements for suppliers to provide information of the environmental footprint of their products and services, the likely effectiveness if it's applied within our organization. Well, the sustainable procurement policy is likely to be effective in promoting sustainability throughout the supply chain by selecting suppliers with strong sustainability credibility. Budget the cost associated with implementing the sustainable procurement policy may include initial research, development, training programs, and procurement staff, and potential changes in supplier selection, which I have done a small research. Well, if that could be applied within our organization, that would probably cost between $6,000 to $10,000. Well, the time frame for implementing this policy, well, the suggested time frame is 6 months. However, I do believe it could be actually applied within 3 months. However, since it is the first time that we are adopting sustainabilities, I would like to extend the time frame just to make sure that everyone is taking the subject very seriously, and we need the time to absorb the knowledge and everything related to that subject. And that's why we set out probably 6 months. I think it's a suitable time frame for that. Now let's look at a proposed scope. Let's take an example on that. Let's say there's a policy called sustainable purchasing policy and procedure, which could be applied. How do we apply that, or what's the scope for that? Well, firstly, we have to do a policy statement, and what is that? Well, this section is actually provides an overview of the organization commitment to sustainable purchasing practices and set out the context for the policy. What about objectives? What could be the objectives? Well, it could be reducing environmental impact, for example, supporting ethical sourcing, promoting local suppliers. All right, the scopes. Defines the scope of the policy, including the types of purchases and procurement process it covers. Supplier evaluation and selection specifies the criteria process for evaluating and selecting suppliers based on their sustainability performance. Very nice. Monitoring and reporting defines the mechanism for monitoring and reporting progress on sustainability purchasing initiative, including tracking key performance indicators and conducting regular audits, training and awareness, developing a training program and awareness campaigns to educate employees on sustainable purchasing practices and their role in implementing the policy. Moving on, policy number two as well, what could be the scope of energy management policy and procedures? Well, first, policy statement, which it should provide a clear, concise statement of the organization commitment to energy management and reducing energy consumption. Objectives, well, that could be reducing energy usage, increasing energy efficiency, and exploring renewable energy sources such as solar panel or maybe gas or LED lights. Scope. Define the scope of the policy, including all the facility, processes, and activities covered by the energy management program. Roles and responsibilities. Identify roles and responsibilities of individual or departments responsible on implementing that. And lastly, energy audits and assessment describes the process for conducting energy audits and assessments to identify energy savings, energy conservation measures, outline specific measures and best practices to implement to conserve energy, such as equipment optimization, lighting upgrades, or probably behavioral change. Well, this would be the end of my presentation. I hope it was informative for you. I know that in the future we would have a lot of meetings, a lot of presentation regarding incorporating sustainability with our organization. Let's set out the track for our organization on that path. And that would be the first step, encouraging everyone that have any question to not hesitate to contact me, send me emails, or arrange meetings with me. I would like to thank everyone who participated today. And for those who couldn't come to the meeting, I would highly recommend you reviewing the slides and the presentation which I have provided. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.